Play, Watch, Listen is a mostly games industry podcast featuring mostly game developers, and it is funded entirely by supporters on Patreon.
As a heads up, I have a meeting at the top of the hour, so my hard out will be like 60 seconds before the top of the hour.
I think this should be in the podcast.
I
think
agree.
You describing your hard out should be in the podcast.
I'm going to keep this in, and I also think that so that the episode is still a full hour long, you should keep in the first 18 minutes of your meeting
yes.
as part of the audio recording.
As long as every listener doesn't mind signing an NDA.
Well, no, we'll bleep out anything that's NDA'd. Yeah. So it'll just be you going
nonstop.
Your half of the conversation
beeping.
will be fine. Your part of the conversation, and the music starts then. Yeah, yeah. Would you say it has to be happy music or sad happy music? You think? Okay.
That's
what I think. That's
like
what
telling lies.
Sound like.
You know, I was gonna say we would also have like blurring out who I'm on the meeting with, but if we don't even have them represented in the call at all, then it takes on that telling lies where I'm just, a lot of it is me listening periodically, opening my mouth, and it's just bleeped immediately.
That's exactly what I think it should be. Yeah.
You know what?
Also,
I'm down.
I'm having webcam freezies today. Sorry about that. Sometimes the webcam freezy. I apologize. That adds to the telling lies motif though as well, I think. That sometimes you can't see me speaking. Did I ever tell you that I couldn't really get into that game?
We've had that conversation. Yeah, you've bounced off a couple of Sam's things, right? Like you.
Oh no.
Was it you that was talking to me about not loving the most recent one? That was someone else, I think.
Immortality was the one that I kind of bounced off.
Immortality, you bounced off Immortality.
Sorry, that's what I meant actually, is I really like telling lies. I didn't love Immortality. I'm confused.
Didn't we discuss this and realize that neither of you found like the big thing about Immortality?
Yes.
Was that what? Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because I watched a bunch of clips, because I love Sam, and I love anybody that's just boldly doing crazy crap. It gets like instant, like there's only so bad. It could be the worst thing ever made, and it's not going to go to the bottom of my scale because I just approve of wild experiments. So it's sort of a handicapped scale in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't dislike it. I didn't hate it, I should say. But I kind of bounced off of it because I thought the narrative conceit was so amazing, and just the way of telling a story through a filmmaking kind of.
Did you get to that second layer though? Did you get to the unsettling, horrible layer?
I only in watching a bunch of reviews and things, because I couldn't stick with it, and I was like, you know what? I really want to know where this is going, because Sam's games tend to go really cool places from a writing standpoint. So I was sure there was something there. Sure enough, there was something there. But I never stuck in long enough.
There's so many people who just never saw that.
Detriment.
It's a shame. Like it's because it's there, and it is the scariest thing I've ever experienced in a video game. And I just don't think most people have. I'm an absolute scaredy cat, but it definitely I don't know if there's a name for that phobia, but I have a phobia of that, and it really bothered me.
It's interesting how I know we've kind of either
we're dancing
around this topic before, or we've had sort of glancing blows at this thread, but the idea of the riskiness of putting something really juicy late in your game, knowing the drop-off rates, and especially a game like that's so non-linear in how it moves forward. It's one of those things I've come to discover the last, I don't even know, 8-9 years of doing awards juries, is you realize most games play their cards within an hour for sure, but often frequently less. Because what I've found is that I can play a game for under an hour, and if I feel like it's not really holding my interest, but I'm also here to evaluate, like I'm on the music juries typically, so I'm here to kind of evaluate score. If I feel like I think this game has played all of its cards from an aesthetic standpoint and kind of like a musical philosophy standpoint, if it's not holding my interest any further, then I'll go on YouTube and jump to playthroughs, an hour later after that, an hour later after that, and do these kind of little samplings in order to confirm or not. And every now and again, a game comes along where I go, oh wow, this takes a turn and looks quite interesting, and I'll kind of go back in and keep playing. But that's really rare. Very few games aren't
expensive.
Kind of...
Like that's a big, and we've done a couple of games that have had things that you don't see for the first half of the game, and it's a tough sell, because you basically are investing in features, content, stuff that you can't put in a trailer, You've got to keep it out of like previews and talking to people about stuff. That's a big gamble. Like that's because fundamentally, and this is a horrible way of thinking about it, and I feel like this is changing as the audience is getting more kind of informed about the games they're playing, but like fundamentally the game makes its money up front, right? By definition in traditional kind of game sales. So you have to your profitability is tied to your capacity to sell in a trailer, not to what your tail is, other than word of mouth, which obviously has gotten bigger and better. It's kind of like how Evolution doesn't really reward a comfortable retirement, because it's by the time
Right.
by the time you're in that stage of your biology is irrelevant to the next generation because you've procreated.
Yeah.
It's a weird metaphor to pull out for there, but it's such a
Yeah,
solid metaphor. I like that.
okay.
I'm happy with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think of that with Outer Wilds. It was a game that when I first played it, I disliked it because the spaceship flying mechanics are a little hard to grapple with. I think I first played it at a PAX and was like, I'm good. I don't need to play more of that. Turns out one of the best games ever made. But
yeah, that's another one I keep meaning to go back into because everybody says exactly what you just said. They're like, once you get over the initial unpalatable like onboarding, it then pivots into the greatest thing of all time.
Yep.
People have also said the same of Undertale.
That's on my list. I gotta do Undertale at some point. I was just thinking about that earlier
bouncing
today.
off it.
Me too.
I've tried a few times and I'm
Stardew
like,
Valley as well. It's like I just keep bouncing off of Stardew Valley because I something about the gameplay loop doesn't get me, but I know I have to. I feel bad.
Well, it's like the ultimate FOMO because you're like, how am I so out of step with tens of millions of people?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think of myself as having such esoteric taste that, of course, I wouldn't like the thing ever. Like, I'm also pretty. I'll play games that I don't even love through to completion sometimes when it's just clear. I sort of delight in how well it's made or something like that. And even though it's not normally the kind of, because if I left to my own devices, I'll just go back and forth between XCOM and Mass Effect. So it's like, I do value having a mixed diet, and I will play things just on the principle of it being a mixed diet. And so I should theoretically find it easy to play some that, there's been a couple that I just think, man, for whatever reason, this takes a bit of a concerted effort.
I think my thing with Outer Wilds, I think notoriously pretty much everybody agrees the initial spaceship mechanics are pretty rough. Like Undertale, I think grabs people. Yeah. It's tough. Undertale, I think grabs most people pretty fast. I had an issue with that game for a really stupid reason. It was the community for that game when it just after it first came out was like very rabid and angry and like off-putting in a way, like extremely defensive of Undertale. And a lot of kids.
Didn't it come from like a different? I remember watching a thing about. Wasn't there like a different fan community that Undertale kind of grew out of? Like there was an existing fandom, and like the person who made Undertale was like a well-known person within that fandom. Was it
Sword Art Online? Is that right? Or am I saying something insane?
Something.
I don't know
was
about
it
that.
Ruby? I can't remember. It was one of those kind of.
Definitely not Ruby because that was.
No, that would have been in your. That would have been your world. Yeah, you didn't know about that one.
My impression was just that the initial
I might be making this
group
up.
was just very young. It was like teenagers that were super in love with it. But I could be. That was like.
I'm probably getting it mangled. Yeah.
Well, it could be like a fandom latched onto it. Like I have this friend. His name's Ricky Montgomery, and he, when I first met him, was a musician in a band called the Honey Sticks, and then he made some solo music during COVID, and it blew up out of nowhere, and suddenly he had all these fans, even when he was on the brink of like effectively almost quitting a music career because it wasn't sustainable, and that came in no small part from anime, from people making anime fan cams that they would then use his music on. Yeah. And so he's like really lent into it with the way that he talks about his music in a lot of ways. Like his stuff's really good. That's not to take away from how good it is, but the discoverability of it came from like just anime fandoms basically like latched on to his songs as like their unofficial soundtrack, and now he's got millions of followers and tours all the time.
It's weird how those subcultures can lock on. Like Thomas Was Alone was Bronies. Bronies discovered Thomas Was Alone.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. It was massive in that community. And it makes kind of sense because they were stories about friendship. I mean, friendship being magic, right? Friendship being rectangles. So it does make sense, but it was like, I remember there was like, a good few months where everyone in my mentions was a My Little Pony
Brony.
avatar. Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, oh, and they're the nicest fucking group of people as well, bronies. I've never had problems from a brony. It's been lovely.
It's
I'm
funny
not sure how that.
Don't ruin that
holds
for
up.
me. Don't ruin that for me. Don't ruin that for me, Alana.
Yeah. No, I think
I always had a nice
there's
time. But
half there. Yeah, 50-50 on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Austin. Go ahead.
Those little kind of transitory internet hives are fascinating. I scored a movie a number of years ago that starred the actress Stana Katic, who was opposite Nathan Fillion in Castle. She's the cop
Yes.
in that show. She has a more recent show that I'm blanking on the name of as well, but basically a very well-known TV actor. And I scored a movie that she was the lead in, and I didn't realize that she has, I'm assuming thanks to Castle, a hyper engaged online community, or at least in those days, because this was like in the middle of Castle still, and so it was, probably peak popularity. But I just remember it was the same thing what you just said. You gave me a flashback that I was incessantly tagged, and like they were very loving. They're all trying to signal boost the movie and signal boost the soundtrack album and all that. But it was so funny how every one of my mentions for a while and stuff, the avatars were basically her face from all these just endless hardcore fan accounts. And I've seen that before, but that for whatever reason was the most concentrated I'd ever seen, more than any game even. Like, even after working on an AC or, there was a wave of that for a bit after Journey and stuff. But for whatever reason, her supporters are, or at least were, I haven't checked in with them in 8 years or whatever.
I
but
have a similar thing with
was
that show, which I had
pretty
never heard
intense.
of and have never seen, but have become good friends with the actress who plays Nathan Fillion's daughter, I think, Molly Caton Quinn. I just recently DJ'd
Right.
her wedding. And
Nice.
I had I knew that Molly was an actress, but I didn't really know what in. And then it was one of those ones where I think I posted about DJing their wedding, and people were like, from the castle? And it's like, I don't even really know what the castle is. I just know Molly,
The
like
Castle.
completely
The
independently.
Castle. That is the name of it. I think it's
Oh, it's
it's
just
about
castle.
a castle.
Well, the castle
it's
is
about
the
a
name
castle
of
in,
an
Edinburgh.
Australian.
That's
Is-
why.
is
That's
it?
how you
You
just
could be
proved.
lying.
You
I
just
beg your
proved. You just proved not knowing anything about the show so beautifully by calling it. It's like I don't really go on the Facebook too often these days, but
The castle is the name of a very famous Australian movie, actually.
About a
she's
prison.
she's got one of my favorite.
No. we are just living in different cultural worlds.
You might
It's
be
amazing.
thinking of the Rod Lurie movie, The Last Castle, about
That's what
military
I was
prison,
thinking about. Thank you so much for saving my
with
ass.
Robert
I
Redford
appreciate
and
it. That's the one.
Mark Ruffalo and
Famous
Is that like
Australian film.
Gandolfini as well as in that? I think.
James Gandolfini's the warden. Yeah,
No way.
one of Jerry Goldsmith's last scores.
I just noticed that you have the sheet music for the Burbs behind you, and I'm going to need you to play me something from the Burbs, Austin.
The Burbs, yes, indeed. This just came out.
That's amazing.
All the conductor scores of all the cues in the movie.
I also
Oh,
don't know
it's
what that
actually-
is. The Burbs?
The Burbs, one of the Joe Dante cult classics of the 80s. I think this and Gremlins are his two most popular films.
Yeah. So with sheet music like that, so they're cues, so it's not like how you'd have it on an album where they'll like put it into tracks that are meaningful, but that is literally like shot like moment by moment in the film, like each twang of the film, right? So you theoretically could sit and play along to the music to the movie with that if you wanted to.
Yes, with the caveats that they frequently will change things during the final dub, the final mixing of the film. A
Right.
cue might get removed, it might
Editor
get
will be like
partially
that.
edited out.
Yeah.
And so they frequently have notes in here, like this cue doesn't actually appear in the movie. They record it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like here's 2M1, The Raven, which means it's reel 2, first cue of the movie, followed by, you can see a very short cue. That's 2M3 in its entirety. It's like tiny little like transition cue, I'm guessing.
Yeah, little twang as it goes through an exterior shot or something. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Or,
Seinfeld. Yeah,
and this has, these books are great. This one is Omni Music Publishing, which is a guy named Tim here in LA. There's also a guy in the UK who publishes these named Chris Siddall. I'm the guy that buys all of these.
Just the one guy keeping it afloat.
this is the entire loop. Is these three
and
men making it sound
me and a
like Sutra.
cadre of other composers definitely are subsidizing a cottage industry right now.
That's so cool.
I will buy
And
any video game script that publishes. They almost never do, but I'll always buy them. Like if it's
I have a bugbear, and you, Alana, are well placed to fix this for me. I was really disappointed. I bought the Spider-Man script.
I have that one.
I didn't even know this was a thing you can buy.
So you can, yeah,
Like
it's
they buy them,
starting to
they sell them
happen,
like film
and-
scripts.
No, well, yes, it's kind of it's like a film script. What annoyed me was I want especially like a company like Sony that makes those big open world games. I want one of these script books that actually has like all of the structured kind of all the box, all the kind of NPC dialogue lines,
You want the
'cause
equivalent
there's-
of this thing.
I want that thing,
Like-
but for
like
the
a
script for like an open world game, because like the Spider-Man book, don't get me wrong, it's a beautifully written video game, and the script's a great thing.
Is
to
it
have,
just
and I
like the
love it.
cinematics or something?
It's the
that they're putting out?
cinematics. It's like a movie script, and it's like that's great, but that's a subset of the writing in that game. And to me, as a fellow fucking traveler, like I kind of want all the other stuff. I want the gnarly game specific
Those
writing
scripts
rather than
kind of exist. I mean, there is a script of God of War Ragnarok that I've read through in its entirety, but it would be difficult to publish, because it's so fucking long.
it's like a spreadsheet. It's non-linear. It's like a
well,
whole.
No, we have a version of a script, but there are several problems with it, and one of them is it's so hard to track if that script is up to date.
Yeah,
Because sometimes, like, the narrative designer, you'll work and be like, the timing's not right, so let's make an edit when you're already in engine. So then, like, the original script doc isn't constantly updated, and that's like a very difficult thing. Is like figuring out how to keep those documents up to date and whose job that should be and if it's even worth it. And the second would be that a lot of our bugs are systemic. So where would you put them in the script? Like,
Wouldn't you just
Well,
have
that's what I want.
chapter-
Is I want like an insight. I wanted like I wanted like a dictionary. I want like
Yeah,
a
exactly. You'd
reference
have, like-
guide version. Like like I don't get me wrong. This is similar. I need.
I love the idea of it,
Buddy
but
Tim
God,
to
that's
write
big.
it, and I'll be the only person who buys it. But I want this. Like,
it's just
I
the
want-
largest book of all
It's going
time.
to cost $10,000 in order to
I'm-
offset the production costs.
I'm the guy who owns
Yeah, it would take
the
time to
like
produce.
the manual that's like that thick of like, which is specifically the placement of signage on the New York subway system. Like, this is how nerdy I am. I will buy these things. I want the book that is every line of dialogue from like an open world game and how they fit together and how their triggering works and the structure of that. Like, I would pour over that. That would be
To be
You know
honest,
what
there
you
are
could
many
use?
instances in which that would have been useful, because there would like be times where I would try to figure out like, has Kratos said this at this time? What was his response to this? Or like, how many times has this character said this thing? Or have they said this? And I would search for it, and it's loading for like 15 minutes. That giant fucking script doc. So if there was something that were like more like ready to print, smaller, that would probably be helpful for the team as well.
It's a big thing for me because I'm a massive open world game fan, and I do love that as a genre. And I'm just because it's all so huge, it's kind of impossible to imagine and kind of grok it as a designer and as a writer how one of those is put together, because I've never worked on one, obviously. So like for me, that would be amazing, like a reference of just collating all of the production. I appreciate it would be a massive job, but my God, what a resource that would be to just, because if I'm making, if I was making like a first person shooter, right? I can look at Doom, I can look at the floor plans of Doom, I can look at all the assets, I can get a sense of it. It's very very understandable. You can take Mario and you can print it out on a sheet of paper. All of those level layouts. Games got so huge that no one person can kind of hold that concept in their head, and it's obviously a lot of people's work. But I wonder, I don't know. I'd love the scripts. I'd love a map. I'd love I'd love us to have references
love a map.
on these projects. Yeah.
This highlights I think probably a consistent problem that games like this have it's like a design bottleneck that you have to invest in the tools to track this stuff up front.
Totally.
Because I remember when we were working on Erica, the FMV game, obviously every single thing that happens from 5 minutes onward is contingent on a bunch of variables as you go. And you build more and more and more contingencies the deeper into the game you get. And so when you were like, the tools were not fully anticipating all the different development needs. Because I remember, partway through the game, I would be wanting to score a certain scene, and using our debug tools, I would jump to that scene. But it wasn't until later that they had a thing where I could basically type, click all the check boxes of what all the contingent variables of the scene are and what state they would need to be in. Because what would happen is, if before that existed, you would jump to a scene and she'd be talking to a character, and then the camera would cut, and a person would just be in the scene all of a sudden, because it would cut to a different piece of footage that would not be possible if I had played through it and it was of properly going along. But because the system didn't know what to pull from, it would just kind of grab one at random. And so
I'm in that hell right now with the thing we're working on, because it's by that, by a certain point in development, it's all hanging on a thread with 7 variables and flags, and you have to remember to set that flag, otherwise, like you say, like a character will just randomly appear. And it's sort of
too late to then build the tool at this point. Like, it's the return on that investment might be.
And the next game's different enough that you don't build the tool. Yeah, no, this is games is 10 steps forwards, 9 steps back, just on every project. It's
on Stray Gods. There was more than once where I had kind of a cold chill down my spine, existential fear when we'd be working on something and I'd realize, this is actually really contingent on some things, but I can't really find any documentation to kind of make sure that I have as comprehensive an understanding of everything that might have happened, because there was a lot of non-music dialogue in between the songs. So I remember I would call up David Gator and I'd say, hey, during this moment, can you just enumerate everything that is possibly going to influence this moment? And he'd go, oh, it's this, very off the cuff. And I'd go, first off, I'm just blown away that he retains everything like this supercomputer. But then I would say, is this written down anywhere? And he's like, not really. And I go, dude, what if you're in a car accident? Like this
we all have excellent key person insurance cover. That's what it is. That's what the solution is.
You really need his brain to make a game.
It was I was so blown away, but also so terrified, because I thought we're so dependent on him alone.
But that's every designer on a game dev team, and especially in this case, like the director. It's wild how. I think that's something. It's an interesting thing. It is as you say, like the absolute problem with what I'm asking Alana single-handedly to get Sony to do for me, like because the kind of the fact that so much of a game exists in the understanding of the links that exist within the team's minds. You cannot in most games you wouldn't be able to grab the source files, jump into a scene, and get it and understand how it works. Most games are so complex that you have to rely on the memorized information of the people on the team. Your best bet to solving problems.
My job has to be me being there in a meeting with level design, animation, whoever else, just to be like, I don't think the character would do that for this reason, because I have to be the expert in what the character would or would not do, where you can't expect them to be just as educated as the writing team on what the character would or would not do. So you're kind of there to be like expert on thing. And it would be so funny if you were to read the way that some of my levels are written, in that because of the way that things get made, sometimes the writing of the level is really basic because I don't know what animation is going to do yet or whatever. So I'll be like, and then fight ends. And I will update my levels as much as I can, but sometimes you won't do that because you don't need to. It's like it's been done. Nobody needs to rely on that script anymore. So if you were to ship that, there would be some parts that would just say nothing. It would be like,
and then
a thing falls, TBD animation.
And players would be like, Alana's just not good at writing stage directions. She really let the side down.
All of the and that would definitely happen for all of us. But a lot of the stage directions would sometimes be really well fleshed out if I have the time to do it. From all the writers, right? And then sometimes they would just be animation TBD. It would be very, very... You would fully have to go and rewrite the script. But I would be very interested to see that. I actually tried this recently just as a writing project. I tried writing a screenplay of something that I was watching and then reading the screenplay to see how different they were. I did it with the original Halloween specifically because I feel like it's a really iconic movie and I've been writing
this... The whole movie?
Or the whole movie.
And there's probably
must have
not a
taken
lot on
quite
the
a
page
while.
with that movie, right? Like that's
My
a
first
beautifully
scene
shot but
was-
light film.
Almost perfect. Which I think is not credit to me, it's credit to their direction. In that it is a lot of
As
scene
in
direction.
the stage direct. So there was more in the script, kind of defining that stage direction. Is what you're saying? Or?
No, I'm saying basically what I wrote is almost exactly what they wrote, and that just means that the direction is so clear.
Because you were writing in reaction to watching it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's so it's so similar that they took the things from the page and executed on them like perfectly without almost no change, like really subtle changes, but not very many at all. Like it's so similar.
Did
but
Carpenter write and direct that, or was that a different writer that he was?
I don't know who wrote it. Let me look it up.
Because that was Carpenter in his. I'm going to direct the movie. I'm going to do the soundtrack. I'm going to probably be
I
in
know
it.
he directed it. I
think,
don't remember if he wrote it.
I feel like a big part of the reason why he scored those films was a function of budget in the early days. It was just
I've
literally
got so many of his records that I love.
He's so fucking good. It's co-written between John Carpenter and movie producer Deborah Hill.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Who I think they've had a partnership for a pretty long time, but
They've done
I
some
can't
stuff
really
together,
remember
yeah.
any of the details, but I do remember the Netflix movies that made us episode about Halloween being amazing because every episode of that show is amazing.
I feel like that show that shows 90% edits of people going, huh? Right?
Which is
Is that what that show is? Are we talking about the same show? It's like a
the
bunch
movies
of people.
that made us. It's
Movie that
the,
made us. It's a lot of like fake reaction shots, right? I remember from that show.
That's funny. I've watched the
I don't
games that
think
made
so.
us, but not the movies that made us.
And
the toys. That was good too.
It is obviously a little bit reality TV in its aesthetic, but still, just as a behind-the-scenes source of information. The Home Alone one, I think, is.
I was going to say the Home Alone one's amazing. I had no appreciation for Home Alone before I watched that. When they point out that like the color palette is Christmas, and you're like, oh my god, the color palette is Christmas. How do
about the fact that
like their house looks like Christmas? Yeah.
Every interior of the McAllister house was built in a high school, an abandoned high school.
Whoa, no way.
They literally they found a house that they got for the exterior, and then all of the bedrooms and the hallways, and they just found an abandoned high school. And because the school was so large, their production offices were in the same building as well. So there's just like all under this big, because I think what started is that there's the scene where he pours all the water down the steps, and they wanted somewhere they could do kind of a water gag. And so they were like, oh, well, there's this high school that has a pool in the gym, and we can build our set in the pool so we can just flood it with water and it's no big deal. And then they were like, just snowballed from there of, well, hell, we could build a bedroom in here as well. We could do the thing. Like,
no way.
And that movie, seriously, that episode, also the talking about how that movie kind of seemed to change stunts, because the stunt people went so nuts. They basically, from that point forward, referred to it as like, we're Home Aloneing it, where they just like, they said after every take, the people in Video Village were like, oh my God, please tell me he's still alive. Because these guys were just so committed to those guys. And when you watch the two robbers, like all the different ways they go down, it is such commitment. Like those guys, it's one of those that for all every year, the inevitable, there should be an Oscar category for stunts. If or when they ever do that, they need to retroactively go back and be like, we need to give an honorary Oscar post-mortem type way to the Home Alone crew, because holy hell, that movie also made me appreciate just that aspect alone was like a moment in cinema as a result. But anyway, because I have to leave soon.
History. Yeah, you've been playing.
I need to know. Yeah, I need to know if you guys have played it and what you think.
I wanted to, but family stuff has been happening. I haven't played a video game in the last 2 weeks. I feel like
What's the game we're talking about? I missed it.
Frostpunk 2.
No, I've not played it yet. Is it good?
Did you?
Tell us about it.
I think they're just such an amazing studio.
I played the first one and I adore it.
The aesthetics of the first one, it's just beautiful. It's insane how good that game looks for the genre it's in. Like, it's amazing.
And also,
for any genre, but yeah.
Well, and also, I don't like they do well as a studio, but they don't gratuitously spend either. So they manage to make things that have really distinctive, amazing looks. Because This War of Mine has the same thing going for it as well.
What a game!
Where you're like, man, they just know how to execute so well.
I would call them, Chapel Roan has been quoted as saying that she's your favorite artist's favorite artist. I would call 11-bit your favorite game dev's favorite game dev. Like, I feel like most of the people who talk about this War of Mine or Frostpunk 2 on any of my timelines are other game devs who are usually like, this is fucking amazing, because they don't have a big marketing budget. So it doesn't necessarily like get outside of that bubble. I mean, I'm sure they're bigger than I'm giving them credit for.
Yeah.
I knew
they also
this War of Mine
publish
was,
games.
do they?
They're also 11-bit's also a pretty active publisher.
They've been around a long time as well. Like 11-bit have been. I remember them being contemporaries to me when I was kind of starting up.
They were 1-bit at the time, and
they accrued bits at the time. So.
Founded in 2010.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Kind of similar time to when I was doing my thing. And I remember because I think that was one of the names I wanted to go with for the company at a very early stage. Was
11-bit?
like, I'll call myself. Well, no, I was like, 8-bit or 9 because my name's Bithel. I was like, use the bit and do something with it. And then 11-bit obviously were already established enough. Then I was like, I can't do it.
It's too many bits.
It's too many bits.
But yeah, Frostpunk 2 is out on Mac and Windows and is coming to consoles next year.
Nice.
It's a city building
really
survival
good.
game, as was the first one. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Austin?
so it basically, I don't know that I can like think of any studio that manages to gamify horribly depressing, anxiety-ridden scenarios better than them. Because this War of Mine was genuinely one of the most dreary and upsetting games I had ever played. I felt so viscerally everything that happened in that game. And then basically it felt like Frostpunk was, okay, how do we scale that up to kind of more of a population level, but somehow without losing the tactile sense of loss and sort of weight on your shoulders, which was what made that game so amazing, is you just felt like the default state of this game is abject failure, and they make it fun to sort of struggle knowing that you're probably going to fail horribly. This War of Mine, same thing. Frostpunk 2, I feel like they scale up even farther, and so it does lose some of that, but the trade-off is it's a more mechanically rich game. It's much more, there's a lot more to it to think about, and they start introducing a lot of, like, I don't think this was in the first game is purely, can you lead these people to survival? But now, unless I'm just blanking, because it's been a little while since I played the first one, but they have this whole new mechanic of different factions emerging, and you are now, not only are you just doing the basic, like, how do I keep my generator powered? How do I get enough food coming in? All the kind of resource management struggles of the first one. There's this whole other aspect of, oh, well, now 30% of the people are going to hate it if I do this, but the rest will like it. Is that going to start a domino effect that's going to gradually eventually come to bite me in the ass? How do I pit these groups against each other, try to make them work together? And then it adds all these other things where, you then go and send out scouts to try to develop a colony to feed resources in. And it goes, oh, but this colony is populated by people of this one particular faction. So if you have them join your community, it's going to really change the balance you have, but you also might really need those resources. So it's from just a pure strategy, kind of like quasi 4X type game. It's quite complex, I feel. And whilst keeping everything just dripping in this mode of, like, it's constantly telling you 78 more people just died due to lack of shelter and stuff like that. It's just so kind of dark and dreary, but it does abstract, even the animation, like each individual person in the original in Frostpunk, you see them it's like if there's 200 people, you seemingly see, I don't know how literal and one-to-one it is, but you seemingly see 200 people kind of actually doing the thing. And if you assign 10 workers to go do that thing, you'll see 10 people trudge through the snow. Now it doesn't do that. Now we're kind of zoomed out, and it's a little bit more suggestive as a way to show, like, you're a little bit higher altitude. You kind of get the sense of...
So it's slightly less intimate? Do you lose anything because of that?
You absolutely lose the intimacy. If you think of this War of Mine to Frostpunk 2 having a kind of trajectory away from
I
intimacy.
love that way of thinking about, like, follow-up games, though, that kind of slow zooming out on on the same kind of
Yeah,
story
true.
is really interesting.
It's the
That's all.
trade-off where you go, if I want way less resource management and way more intimacy, go play this War of Mine. You know what I mean? Where it ends up creating a spectrum, almost like a menu of what particular component of this do you gravitate with?
What kind of existential
depression
sorrow
are
would
you
you like
looking
this
for
evening?
today?
So
Yeah. It's like the Life of Brian scene where they're in the restaurant that sells conversations and there's just someone being tortured mercilessly in the background.
Yeah, I don't remember there being factions like that in the first game. Not that I recall.
Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
also
sure
haven't
that's
played
an
it
invention
since
of
it came out, but-
of the sequel.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a smart progression, I think, and even
I
if
really
they,
like it.
yeah,
It is I've been playing through the kind of narrative story mode where it gives you specific objectives, but there is also just like a sandbox mode that I think I want to pivot. Well, because today I fucked up and I basically hit a fail state and have to run back the clock maybe an hour or two to try to salvage it. I was like, I think I'm going to use that as my moment to pivot to the sandbox mode just to see how different it is, where it's sort of, I assume, unrestricted tech tree and stuff. It's really good. One of the main mechanics, or one of the ways that they kind of further this mechanic of the different, or feature, I should say, of the different factions, is you have to pass laws in your city, and different factions will support them to different degrees, but you can try to persuade them by buying them off or letting them choose the next law, or convincing them in exchange, like, okay, you guys want to build this type of structure. No one else wants that, but I'll build it if you're willing to vote for this thing. And it constantly makes you feel like, boy, I don't know how this is going to ruin things for me later. But it's like, because you're basically, it's this constant negotiation internally between short term and long term, where you're going, this will get me to the next hurdle, but it might make the long term hurdle unsustainable. It's just, it feels like there are so many metaphors to things we deal with in life baked into that kind of thing, delayed gratification versus, and thrift versus short-term satisfaction or short-term goal, or even just pitting short-term survival versus long-term survival and how those can come into direct conflict. The whole thing just makes you end up feeling like, is this even a game? I'm just full of anxiety right now.
So
and I
funny.
find that so, I love it.
You're really
I'm
selling this to me as
Well,
a nice, relaxing end to the day kind of
the
game.
problem is I'm fully sold on it, and it's like it's similar to Papers, Please. I just recommended Papers, Please to somebody this morning, and it's a weird one to recommend because it's always like, it's very good, but also,
But
sorry,
awful, yeah.
like it's so
You're
terrible.
going to feel bad, but like in a really good
It'll
way.
make you think
Like,
about things, and mostly about how shitty people are. But like, it's
Yeah,
such
isn't
a
it amazing how that game can make you feel that way, even with the art direction being so
Totally.
unrealistic?
Yeah.
Like, you actually feel guilt over such incredibly kind of like utterly non-realistic, highly stylized visuals. Like,
some of them are fucking
Papers-
lying to you, and they give you sub stories, and like it's rough. And I feel like that's the only thing that would give me a similar feeling to this War of Mine has, and Frostpunk, I would say. But I wonder what it is that makes us enjoy experiences like that, because I
think
love
it's like
those
the
kinds of
trolley
games.
problem, right? Where you're going, it's all well and good while this is a hypothetical. And I think we can enjoy it because it makes you wrestle, like in this War of Mine, where there's things like you'll come across an elderly couple, you can steal their food and kind of talk yourself into it, going, well, look, they're old, I have injured people that are young and could help. Like, you start doing these very dark cost benefit analyses where you go, I think this is the kind of the point of video games, to create a space to let you run those thought experiments so that, they don't, so that you're inoculated from them in the real world, in a sense. Or you could kind of get the satisfaction of thinking through it in this incredibly controlled, obviously utterly safe way.
Yeah, I
It
think
sort of
that's why
lets you go to those dark places.
I think that's why so many I was reading this, I'm sure I've mentioned it on the show before, why so many women like watching serial killer documentaries.
True crime. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
it's
going to say true
because
crime's the same vibe. Yeah.
Women are usually afraid when leaving the house or going out at night, worried about being stalked or about being murdered or whatever else. So watching it gives you a sense of comfort over the thing or control of the thing that you're afraid of, because you're controlling how you're consuming it, I guess. And I wonder if it's like similar kind of thing where it's like hypotheticals that we think of on a very macro level in a day-to-day life. You're thinking about things in a really, really small degree, just like stretched out and given to you in entertainment. I wonder if it's like therapeutic in a way, even though it's
We're also
awful.
just like empathy machines. We just really have evolved to give a shit about other people. Like that's
Well, hopefully.
been.
Dude,
I think on a
XCOM
meta level, there's a lot of evidence that human beings, on the whole, care to an incredible extent about other people and about their stories and about their lives. Like that's why we tell each other stories. Like I think we're designed to give a shit. Like, or not designed to
we
give a shit, but we have
absolutely are.
evolved.
Well, we
to
have
give
been
a shit,
designed
yeah.
by natural selection.
There you go.
We
We haven't got time for that debate, Austin. We haven't got time. We can't get there.
We've got 2 minutes. Let's do
We haven't
it.
got time. You've got this meeting. You're going to record the meeting for
Yeah,
us.
this meeting
I-
we're going to record.
That's right. I'll just add the person
just
I'm
bring
meeting
them
with.
in
I'll just
here.
add them to this call. Be like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
you mind
yeah, yeah.
recording locally? And
Come join this. I'm going to play the entirety of the soundtrack to the Burbs. Come join us.
yeah, I feel like you need only play XCOM where you name your
Oh my god,
your
after people you know.
after you know to realize how empathetic we really are, because it could literally, like, I could take a dude that's like let me try and think of what is physically the exact opposite of Alana. Like, it's like you're actually pretty tall, so we do like a really short, like very thick beard, dark hair, but I call them Alana.
Mm-hmm.
And in the context of XCOM, and it's like, and then I fuck up and kill them, and you may as well have just died.
I've texted
and-
friends after playing XCOM who know nothing about
Condolences.
XCOM, and been like, "You just died. I'm so sorry," even though they don't know what XCOM
And
is
it
or
was
understand
my
what
fault.
that means. Yeah, and it was 100% my fault. I'm so sorry. It really does do that. That's the thing with Pokemon. You know, Nuzlocke runs in Pokemon where there's basically a bunch of rules about if you catch a Pokemon, you can't swap it out, and it has to if it faints, it's dead, and you have to name them. Is one of the rules for that, because I guess naming the Pokemon makes people have way more sense of loss when it inevitably faints and dies. So you have to come up with a name for every single one of them so you have more of an attachment. It's not a Bulbasaur, it's your Bulbasaur, whatever you named it. And I feel like that totally works. It's just, video games are sort of just empathy machines, and we just can't get enough of it.
But it's incredible the way some so skillfully gamify that specifically. Yeah,
Totally.
I recommend Frostpunk. I'd love to hear what you think. Like I said,
Yeah, I'll play it.
they trade out some of the things that I really love about the first one, but in exchange for new things that it'll be interesting to see on balance which one I feel like I kind of love more. But they've really done a good job at saying we're not just reskinning
Yeah.
another game. We've offered something different.
Sounds like a sequel rather than an upgrade, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
Big points to them. I gotta bounce. Catch you
We
later.
look forward to your recording.
Yes, I'll
Yep.
I'll send it
Please
to the
report
editor.
back.
And,
Bye. Related to that, I have to reframe to that conversation, Mike. What do you think is going to be game of the year?
Oh god, don't do
Because
this
like
to me.
people loved Frostpunk, but that also came out. I think it was 2018, which was God of War, Red Dead Redemption. So obviously, Shadow of Erdtree, very very popular. Astrobot, very very popular. Like it's
Astrobot had
it's really
Astrobot was
good.
like it was a crowd pleaser as well. It was like it was full quadrant, right? It was in, and that's how you win awards. Is you don't necessarily win awards by making the best thing. You win awards by making everyone's top 3. I think
Yeah,
that's
true. Yeah.
I wonder if Astrobot might be that one. It'll definitely do well.
Black Myth Wukong will do well. I'm trying to think of Silent Hill comes out this week. Metaphor Refantasio is reviewing very well, which is Atlas's latest game, the studio who makes Platinum.
I've not heard of that one.
Sorry,
I need to
the
check that out.
studio who makes Persona. But yeah, but I feel like it's been kind of a weird lull year where everyone is seemingly saving for next year.
Are we in the COVID lull in terms of AAA? Like, I wonder.
Probably we're on the tail end of it, yeah.
Because there's a few major games that've been delayed, and I wonder if that's part of the kind of the knock-on effects, people trying to get stuff through.
And all the layoffs, that's got to slow things down consistently. Like, it's hard to
Yeah,
work
you
when
think,
morale is
right?
terrible as well.
Yeah, and then morale as well. Like, I think that's something that's possibly kind of abstract for the audience to understand, but like, I don't know a single game dev who's not got like a low hum of fear in the back of their
100%.
mind right now about that. Like whoever you talk to, it's just kind of the background noise. Everyone in the entire industry is a little on edge, a little aware that it could be them next. You know what I mean? Like,
And that will affect how you work. Who'd have
that affects
thought?
how you work. It's almost like a stable, kind, successful industry would make better games.
Okay, entitled. You know?
Yeah, a little bit.
Get a job
No,
elsewhere.
you're
Take what
right.
you'll get.
I'm being a bit Gen Z about this. I apologize.
Bit Gen Z. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a weird year for releases, like one of those kind of interim years. But I wonder if I looked at a list, if I would probably like eat my own words. That like what?
I feel like, yeah, and you always feel this way at October as well, because there's still a few
True.
of the big hitters to come out.
What have we had so far?
What do we have still to come out?
Shadow of the Erdtree. This is games that have come out this year that have scored 90 or higher on Metacritic. So Erdtree got 95. Right now, I would call that game of the year, but it's tough to say because it is an expansion. Like, if outlets will consider it that or not, it could be a video game. It's very beefy.
It's also one of those ones that you either love or completely disinterested in.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
that kind of.
Totally.
There's a big wall to that one.
Yeah.
What else on there?
Astrobot is second, which
Yep.
I'd be happy to see that. I feel
It'll
like
make a lot of lists.
Oh my god, I keep forgetting about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Obviously, that came out this year. I completely forgot about it.
Oh damn! Yeah, it did, didn't it?
Yeah, it feels like it's so long ago, but it was February.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. I think I've spoken about this on the show before. I'm going to make a whole YouTube video about how much I fucking love the Yakuza series. Like, I just love it so much. But I haven't played Infinite Wealth. But that got a 92, which is awesome. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. That was an Annapurna release that I've heard people talk about, but I haven't played. Let me put that on my playlist.
Any image of that?
I think it was Lucy James that I saw talk about it the most. It's a puzzle game.
Okay.
On the Switch. Yeah, people seem to.
Oh, I've seen video of this.
Yeah, more than 150 puzzles can be played in a non-linear sequence, third-person perspective. Sounds a little misty. Reviewed really, really positively. Animal Well, which we have spoken about from Big Mode.
Yes.
Oh my god, Balatro. Of course, Balatro is totally going to get up for awards.
The game I forbid myself from playing. Like I want the makers of that game to know I'm actively not playing your game because I just get addicted to it. I know.
Yeah, with how I was with Inscription's Casey's mod, like when I got Casey's mod, I think I played for 10 hours straight. I didn't sleep, and then I don't want to know how much of that game I played in a week. It was terrible. It ruined my life. Balatro is just that.
Yeah, my brain there. It's you know. An alcoholic doesn't walk into a pub. I don't play a game like that.
There's another one that I recommended to somebody today, and I said, but be careful. Destiny 2 The Final Shape, Tekken 8, Thank Goodness You're Here, and The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Thank Goodness You're Here. I've not heard of that. Thank Goodness You're Here is an adventure game developed by British studio Cold Supper and published by Panic.
This blew up. This is really funny, apparently. I've been told this is very funny. I remember this was really beloved. This made a lot of noise when it came out. I need to play it because it's very...
Yeah, worth playing every game on that
taste.
list. Yeah. So those are the... What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games that have over a 90 on Metacritic.
That seems low.
Low? Yeah? I'm
In terms
not sure
of
what
number?
the average is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've no idea.
Let me have a look at 2023.
And what are the big hitters we've got? Assassin's Creed's delayed, isn't it? That's not coming.
Yep, that's next year now.
Is there anything? Are there any of the other big? There'll be a Call of Duty along shortly. That's not going to likely make kind of
again. I think Metal Refantasio will be big for RPG fans. Silent Hill 2 remake from Bloober comes out next week.
That'll click.
I'm pretty excited about that one. I love Silent Hill 2. Haven't played it in forever. And I've also played every Bloober game. Love a bit of Fog. And will play every game they ever make. Some people have like mixed opinions on Bloober, but from everything we've seen, I think especially the most recent trailer, that looks really good. So
Yeah.
So actually the list is not that much longer for last year. Last year's 2023 release is scoring 90 out of 100 or higher on Metacritic is The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Metroid Prime Remastered, Resident Evil 4, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Street Fighter 6, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Oh, I guess the new Zelda just came out as well, but I've not seen how... the one where you play as Zelda.
I've not seen that at all.
Yeah, neither have
I've
you.
been so much in my little
Little game dev bubble.
non shared
I get it.
milestone bubble. Yeah.
Against
not
the
played any of
Storm,
them.
Slay the Princess, Dave the Diver, Ghost Trick, Videoverse, Quake 2, The Making of Karataka, Jack Gene, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Tents and Trees, and Walkabout Mini Golf. There are like 3 of those games that I haven't heard of. This is a good way to... Every year at
Let's play some more games is my main takeaway from this conversation.
Yeah, every year at the
I got a lot.
IGDA, I will take the winners from each category and make sure I play them, which is usually like pretty easy to do because it's voted for by game devs, so they're very specific selections. They're often a lot shorter than your average game, and
Yep.
they're always really creative. So I'll always go through and play all of those, but this doesn't seem like a bad thing to do as well. It's like if I've not heard of some of these, like, or I haven't played some of these, good way to catch up on things you should be playing. Like, again, haven't heard of Thank Goodness You're Here, which, yeah, adventure video game, play a
That's on my
role.
Christmas list. That's one
Yeah.
I'll play with like family at Christmas, I think.
You take the role of a traveling salesman who performs odd jobs for residents of a bizarre town in northern England. Isn't that basically like what you do for a living?
I was going to say,
know?
I live in a bizarre town in northern England,
Yeah,
so I
that's
could relate to
kind
that.
of that's what you already do, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one though. I don't know what's going to happen, but I thought of that because I wouldn't be surprised if Frostpunk 2 also ends up getting a whole bunch of votes from some of the outlets that'll actually play it. I'm not sure how it's reviewing though.
It's the right
It's the
point in
first
the
one.
year as well. Like, it'll be in everyone's memory as well still.
Yeah.
It's kind of the reverse of the Final Fantasy thing. Like, it's gonna sit.
It's got an
present.
85 on Metacritic, so not huge.
I mean, in the indie space, that's
Yeah,
about
true.
that is a 9 for us. Like, in the indie space, we don't get to touch those very high marks unless you make something that just really delivers. Like I'm surprised there aren't more indie comedy games because I think those can cross over and go up like that one did. Like, I think there's, I think it's an indie 85 you're happy with. Like, that's a good score. That's fine.
Yeah, totally.
Happy with an 85.
Yeah, especially because it's such a specific type of game too. It looks like they have 60 that brought the review down a fair bit.
I could take 5 guesses at which outlet it is. See
I've
if
never
Tom
heard of
Arndt
them
would
before.
assume. Oh,
I've
I've
never heard of them.
those guys. No, I wouldn't want to knock them. Don't know.
It doesn't seem unfair what they wrote in their little synopsis there, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been an interesting year, and I do feel like next year things are going to be crazy from what we know so far. I'm so curious to see how much everyone does or doesn't move out of the way of GTA, of how much that actually does happen, or if they even come out, because I don't remember the last time Rockstar released a game without pushing it.
What have they announced as their date, GTA?
I don't think they have a date. I think they
haven't announced,
just
right?
said the
No.
year. GTA 6 release date.
Because, I mean, that's the thing. It's GTA. It's
They
one of
said
those
late
games that...
2025.
Yeah. It's its own industry. It doesn't need to compete with anyone else. And everyone else, as you say, is just going to dive out of the way.
Oh yeah,
And
they can
that
come
would
out
be a
whenever the fuck
drought.
they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone else is gonna go, ugh, nowhere near that,
none of us
please.
are going to release a game near that. No.
God no. So it's like interesting to see if next year, which again I would bet money that wins Game of the Year. Like it's like such a
That's a safe
guarantee. Like
bet.
you can already say I don't even know what's coming out next year. Yeah, GTA is gonna win. I'm so excited, dude. I'm
looking forward to it. I've always enjoyed them. I've never had a bad time with a GTA
I
game.
get so fucking excited for a Rockstar game.
It's great to see someone batting at that level with those resources. What's possible? Like, it's just incredibly exciting.
They're the
Like,
only ones who can do it, and like I will never stop thinking that they're awesome. They get shit for. I had to look into it a little because I wasn't sure why not supporting Red Dead Online and for releasing so much GTA Online content instead of coming out with a single player DLC that I think they promised and then just like never spoke about again, which is fair enough. But the way they function is like I'm so okay with them repeatedly releasing content for GTA Online. Call it a cash cow, whatever you want. Shark cards. They're the reason they get to make the most expensive video games of all time.
yeah.
Like they are the reason that like the GTA Online to Grand Theft Auto 6 pipeline is something that I feel like so many studios wish they could have. That you have yourself funding yourself. like with that much money so that you get to make something so expensive, the likes of which nobody else can even fucking touch, is so cool and so exciting. I'm just excited to see what they make, because they have so much more than the rest of us do in terms of the fact that the shark cards just print infinite money. It's very exciting.
It's they're not in the same industry as everyone else. Like
literally their
they're
own
just
games
doing
industry.
something completely different. Yeah.
It's like a there's like
use,
video game industry, and then there's a Rockstar industry, and they're just two different things.
And you can see that in the quality when you go back and look at, even if you just look at like footage of, even like GTA 4 has aged incredibly. Like it just looks, you could release that nowadays a lot. A lot of that stuff is just gorgeous. Like they're a generation ahead of the rest of us. It's always interesting. And, as someone who, and you're the same, someone who like works in this field and understands this art form, like, seeing what's possible, I find that just massively inspiring.
Yep.
I find it. Yeah.
It's like seeing wish fulfillment. Like you get to watch what you could do.
Because a lot of what we do is compromise, right? A lot of our work is like working within like this is the budget, this is the team size, this is our skill level, this is what we can do, kind of thing. So seeing what happens if none of those limits exist is it's very cool.
So exciting. And I also feel like it's one of those things where you get to watch kind of what matters to the industry. Like, I always feel like it's such a big deal that Gears of War kind of... It wasn't the first, but pioneered the cover system in a way that GTA, I think it was 4, at least credits Gears of War with encouraging them to make a cover system. And it's like, whatever we get from GTA 6... you'll watch what they decided to take from other games or from other developers, and it's like a really interesting look at here's what the best with all of the resources in the world consider to be the most valuable, and we get them so rarely, and it's like a study.
It's like it's almost like a World's Fair or like the Olympics. It's like a coming together of the best of everyone. That's really. Kind of like that. It's kind of an optimistic, nice way of looking at it.
I feel very optimistic about Rockstar, just in general, man. Such a fan.
I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right.
For me, it's just. I need to hear those new radio stations. That's the big one for me. Every single one that comes out.
So good.
Those I remember as a teenager, I knew every sketch on those radio stations. Like,
apparently, some of those have aged. Like crazy,
fucking terribly. But GTA's comedy has never been like, it's not highbrow, is it? Like, it's always been that kind of thing.
I will also defend that. Like, basically, I'm just a GTA fanboy at this point, but I will also defend that because it is just satire of the way Americans speak, and I feel like when you looking at GTA specifically as a very like American cultural criticism, as somebody who's not American.
Oh, it's very Scottish. That's the thing that's hilarious about about GTA is it's a very Scottish game.
Just making fun of America, and some of it's so accurate. Like the stuff that's aged badly, not even aged badly because the stuff still exists, but it's the people who are saying it. The English model actress with the eyebrows is one of the radio hosts, Cara Delevingne, and I think she says some like crazy offensive shit. It's in character. She's a radio host in GTA, but I think that was one of the ones that people were like, Cara Delevingne said this, and it's like, well, it's GTA. It's sort of the point. Yeah. That's what they do.
I mean, any comedy ages so much faster than any other media. Like, it's the one episode rule, right? There is for any comedy you could ever suggest to anyone. There's an episode. There's an episode that you've forgotten exists that is incredibly upsetting and embarrassing.
Yeah, true.
And, contains hate speech. Like, you will have forgotten that one episode.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's good that society moves forward at that pace. That's a good thing.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, comedies, like, people, I will argue against this till the end of time, will make the argument that we've become too sensitive, but friendly reminder, people used to be jailed for stand-up routines. Not even that long ago. They were put in jail for stand-up comedy. We're not, I don't think, any more or less sensitive than we used to be. We're still very sensitive
just
about different shit. Used to be handcuffed for swearing in the street.
People just got very good as well at monetizing by monetizing messing up. Like the idea of like, the cancelled comedian now immediately gets the big special, right? And that's so there. It's when people in the past messed up. Yeah, but in the past, when someone messed up or like said something rough, they just disappeared. They just weren't present anymore in media. I think a lot of the cancellation conversation stuff is just that people stick around now after the fact. That didn't used to happen.
True.
And there's an audience for them, and fair play.
Certainly a big audience for them.
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody, that is this week's episode of this show. I'm a lot of video game writer. That's my video game director. Austin Wintory, video game composer, was here and is now taking a meeting. What a schmuck.
Well, jerk, I'm sat here. I'm exhausted. I'm barely making any sense. I'm still here.
I'm jet lagged as shit. I got in last night at 6:30 p.m. and I been awake since 4 a.m. And Austin couldn't even stay for an extra 20 minutes.
He's not committed to the show.
Yeah, I think we need to fire
I think it's
him.
time we talk about that. Yeah. I think we should
From
first of all, we
show
should gain the power to fire. Yeah, exactly. But like, I think
it's about
maybe just reprimand. Just let him know there's an issue. Talk about it. Yeah, just kind of take him to one side, let him know that there's an issue, and see where he goes from there.
I'll send him a text
check in
being,
a few months.
Hey, you free to get coffee?
Yeah, let's have a 5-minute chat.
But I'll let it hang for a while so he has to overthink why I asked. He'll be like, yeah, this day, and then I'll leave it for a few days before I get back to it.
Just sit on your keyboard, just tapping the A button so you can see you typing for a really long time, and then delete all of that and just send like one word.
Yeah.
That'll mess with him.
Yeah, KK or something like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't watch the show, so he'll never see it coming.
No, he does watch the show when he's not on it. I don't watch the show when I'm not on it.
I've never watched it.
It's weird. I've always thought like it's like if you didn't go out for a night with your friends and then you just watch surveillance footage of them instead, you know what I mean? Like it feels weird.
Yeah.
So no, I think
I guess.
I don't want to. If you can absolutely badmouth me when I'm not in the room, that's fine.
We'll do. We'll make sure we do that next time.
I endorse it. I support it. I encourage it.
Well, got to keep everybody in their place. It is what it is. All right. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, everybody. Bye.